Live from the 607, it is the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking sports locally and nationally. Why don't you join in the conversation with the hashtag ODPH? Here we go. And welcome to a special edition of the ODPH. I'm your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the intern himself, Padawan J.
Boy, oh boy, do we have some news for you guys.
Absolutely. We just dropped the Crow's Nest MMA episode. Shout out to Luke Vizengard and Vince Iatoli for coming on and giving their MMA story. But there was some news that broke shortly after we released this episode.
Yeah, we were expecting some news, but not quite this quick.
No, absolutely not. The big news that we just had to do a show and break down to you was LeBron James finally decided where he was going to play this coming season of the NBA.
Yep.
And to a shock to me personally, because I got on the show last week and I said he was not going to go to LA. It didn't really make sense for him to go to LA. He was going to stay in Cleveland. There would have been like an 11th hour. Him and Paul George got re-hooked up in Cleveland, and they would be the team to beat in the East. Nope. He decided it took less than 24 hours of free agency to sign a 4-year, $154 million deal with those Los Angeles Lakers.
Say somebody cue Tupac, California Love.
I tell you what, I am very shocked at this move.
So am I.
Because as the roster currently stands, I don't really see how they are going to defeat Golden State.
I don't think they are immediately, and I think that is what LeBron is saying by taking a 4-year deal, because the thing that got pointed out, I think it was by Brian Windhorst of ESPN, somebody on ESPN, was that when you look back at LeBron's previous contracts, when he was with Cleveland, it was never anything more than 3 years.
Right.
When he was with Miami, it was 4 years. This is 4 years, and according to Stephen A. Smith, everything Stephen A. Smith has heard, there is no opt-out after 3 years. This is straight up, he's there for 4 years. This is LeBron acknowledging that we're not a contender yet, but I'm willing to stick around and we can build something that can win.
Well, I think what's more puzzling is he wants to take that project on at this stage of his career. For me, I just look at this and go, why would you go out west when you have to compete with Golden State, who is not losing anybody drastically out of their core four as we are recording?
No, I mean, the only one who was left on that team that's not in the core four was JaVale McGee, who is joining LeBron in Los Angeles for a 1-year deal.
Right. Then you have Houston, who re-signed Chris Paul for 4 years. And their nucleus is still together, I think, except for Trevor Ariza, I believe, went to Phoenix.
Yep, Trevor Ariza signed with Phoenix.
So they're still going to contend. As we were recording, Kawhi Leonard is still in San Antonio.
Although all indications are he really wants to get to Los Angeles, that the Lakers are highly on his mind. It's just the thing that I saw today was that, from what I've read, every preceding offer from the Los Angeles Lakers has gotten progressively worse.
Well, because they're not stupid enough to give up their entire team just for Kawhi.
No, of course, then the interesting thing is they just signed Rajon Rondo on a 1-year, $9 million deal. Now, they've told him he's not going, it's not a guarantee he's going to start over Lonzo Ball, but Rondo is going to go into training camp and preseason with the mentality of, I'm going to try and win this job.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I think the major thing I take away from this is, all right, so LeBron has now made himself into a contender in the West. Why? Why would you want to leave the East, where he was running roughshod over teams, to go, contend with Golden State, with San Antonio, with Houston? Phoenix is on the rise. Dallas is on the rise.
Right. Well, from everything I've kind of read and heard and seen, it sounds like this was kind of his decision from the get-go. From what Brian Windhorst said, and of course Brian Windhorst of ESPN has covered LeBron James since 1999. So if there's anyone outside of James's immediate family that understands LeBron, probably him. From what he was saying, that the decision to go to the Lakers was always in the forefront of his mind. It was always kind of where he felt he was going to go. That the meeting with Philly he had the same day that he met with Magic Johnson, and the same day that it got announced, was just kind of a nice, we're gonna listen to you. Nothing's really gonna happen. We're gonna listen to you. But what ended up happening, I guess, was that LeBron met with Magic Johnson Saturday night, like not long after he landed from Casa de Decision in the Caribbean or wherever it was. They landed in Los Angeles, and not long after he got home, Magic and him met up, and they sat for, I believe what I read was about 3 hours. and it was just the two of them just talking. It was that, from what I understand, it was them building that bond. So the only thing I can figure is LeBron looked Magic in the eye. Magic sold him on whatever his vision is of the future, and LeBron bought in on it.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, Magic is the forefront of the Lakers, and I'm sure that if he says this is our plan and it makes sense, especially LeBron, who is one of the smartest basketball IQ guys on the planet, then that's going to be enticing. But I guess the way I'm looking at it, and granted I'm just a fan, but the way I'm looking at it is with that current roster, your chances are you're not going to get Kawhi Leonard for another year unless something drastic happens. But I can't see San Antonio trading with their rivals. I just can't.
They've said they don't want to, but then again, they're still listening to offers from all sounds.
Well, they can be listening to offers from every team, but why would you trade him in division? Like, I would send him to the East Coast if I'm them. If he really wants to leave San Antonio for whatever reason, like the relationship's dissolved, there's no going back. Okay, you got to move him. Then why would you not go, okay, Boston, what do you want to give up for him? Or Philly, what do you want to do to get Kawhi in Philly?
See, I think in the end, they don't necessarily want to trade him out west, but if it comes down to it, they will, because look at him last year. They were paying him to essentially ride the bench and take up a roster spot that they could have used on somebody else who would have contributed to the team. If you're going to have this happen again, where he will arguably play less games, if he will play at all, because it's clear from everything, all indications, that he wants nothing to do with San Antonio, which is absurd to me because it's Greg Popovich. But you have a guy who wants nothing to do with San Antonio, nothing to do with Greg Popovich, not going to play. Why waste the money in the roster spot for somebody you can bring in who's willing to play and contribute?
It's a valid question. It really is. But I guess the way I look at it is I'm not appeasing him to send him out west and form a super team that I can't contend with my own team. That's my opinion. Like, I would say I'd be working out any kind of deal I could do to send him east. I would talk to the Knicks. I would talk to the Celtics. I would talk to Philly. I mean, the Celtics and Philly are my first two teams. But I also see about a team that has cap space and assets to move. I'm not saying that he would be a perfect fit for New York. I mean, I'd love to see him there.
Oh, it'd be great to see him in New York. I don't think it'll happen, but
I don't think so either. But where else could you send him? And I mean, if you have to send him in division, I don't get that mentality. I just don't. I mean, I understand your point, and I think it's a very valid one. But at the same token, why are you helping create a super team that you can't compete with?
I think the other thing they're possibly looking at, and this is just me guessing, is we can send him someplace and get something back for it, or we can just hold on to him play arguably no games if he plays any at all, like I've said, a little bit ago. And then he's a free agent after next year, and we get nothing.
I would just say this: if you have to move him, especially in the Western Division, wait till the trade deadline, and definitely hold other teams for ransom, so to speak. Because if you lose your MVP caliber player, and you can get something in return of somewhat equal value, you do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But especially if it's going to put your franchise back in your own division, you need to get some kind of equal value. Whether that is future draft picks, whether that is most of the trading teams' roster at the moment, you need to do something to get them.
The whole LeBron getting announced to the Lakers thing, though, for me was the craziest situation in the world. It wasn't as crazy as when I found out he was going to Miami, but I was sitting at home watching the Yankees play batting practice on David Price and the Boston Red Sox. And I was talking with some friends, and I was doing stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and I looked up, and I just saw, however many words scrolling across the bottom of ESPN, breaking news, LeBron signs with Lakers. I was like, wait, really? I had to open Twitter, open 3 different apps and go, wait, seriously?
No, I mean, definitely my phone exploded on Sunday night when that got announced. And just going through the talks I've had with other fans, it's very puzzling. It makes sense on certain aspects, but for me, I still struggle with it. And especially for him to leave the East. Now, albeit though, I think the way he left Cleveland this time around is going to be more endearing, and that is not the decision episode.
It was almost, and I know Darren Ravel of ESPN pointed this out, it was almost like when Jordan announced he was coming back, in the same sort of, it's a single sheet of paper, header at the top with the company, that was announcing it, or his agency or whatever, and then just, to be released immediately, Jordan was, I'm back. This was, he's joining the Los Angeles Lakers.
And that's how it should have been, because I know the decision definitely raised a lot of eyebrows, I mean, mine included, of you're really going to just drag this out and make your fans, hold with bated breath as you leave the hometown team to go to take your talents to South Beach, as you say.
Mm-hmm.
So for this go around, I thought it was handled better. I thought the Cavaliers handled it better.
Yeah, they were polite about it.
Well, I saw that Dan Gilbert, I believe it was him and his team, had a nice letter of congratulating and thanking LeBron for his time in Cleveland.
Thanks for your time in Cleveland. Best of luck on your future endeavors. And I think they ended it with saying, we can't wait to retire the famous Cavs number 23 jersey down the road when that happens.
Yeah, and I think that this is a nice way to play it because he did win you a chip. And as a Cleveland fan, as much as it pains you to see him go, you have to thank him for coming back because he didn't have to.
No, and the thing for me with him joining LA, somebody, I can't take credit for this, somebody posted this online, so full credit to them. They said he had to go to Miami because he needed to learn that championship mentality from Pat Riley. He wasn't going to get it in Cleveland, let's be real. He came back with that championship mentality. They kind of explained, okay, he's joining the Lakers because he hasn't had a team or an ownership that is as committed to winning as he is. Say what you will about the Lakers and their fans, and I know they're the memes and you can certainly search them, but there is nobody as committed or as hungry to win as Lakers management and their fans. The Lakers are kind of like the New York Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys of the NBA. If they don't win a chip, season's a failure. And they haven't made the playoffs in 5 years.
They have a winning franchise history. I mean that's one thing about them.
What's the Lakers' one goal when winning a championship? They want to win more championships than the Boston Celtics. And right now, they're losing.
Right. But in that case, though, they definitely have a different mentality. And I think with Cleveland, they did run its course because they did create a great team around him. When you had Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love first came over from Minnesota, and they had nice role players. I mean, to go to the NBA Finals as long as they have in the East is truly a remarkable feat. And there's nothing that should say Cleveland wasn't trying to win. But I think just in the essence of it's a different mindset in L.A. that, especially Magic Johnson, who is a multi-time champion.
Yep.
That I think in that case, you definitely have a different perspective.
Well, and it's also putting LeBron kind of around Magic, where I can foresee them being kind of two birds of the same feather, where, Magic has got his hands in a lot of stuff. He's part owner of the Dodgers. He's president of basketball operations with the Lakers. He's got media companies. He's got this and that. I can foresee LeBron going there and kind of picking his brain for, hey, I kind of want to do the same thing when I get out of here.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what he gets out of this because, like I said, short term, I just don't see it. Long term, he needs help if he's going to win out there because that roster is slightly better than the one he had in Cleveland.
I mean, can I just say I laughed hysterically when it got announced not long after LeBron was going to the Lakers that Lance Stevenson was joining him?
Well, he's going to get some players that are going to want to join up with him, and that makes sense. I
got to admit, I've laughed a little bit about that one.
That one was very interesting to see, especially with their history. But overall, though, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. And I don't see this current Lakers roster staying the way it is.
No.
Because I don't think they get Kawhi Leonard. I really don't. At least not via trade. I think he goes somewhere by the time the trade deadline rolls around.
No, I think if they wanted him badly enough, they would have gone to San Antonio and gone, what do you want short of everything else on our team?
Exactly. But I don't think that they were going to make a good deal with San Antonio.
They definitely want him, but I don't think they want him bad enough that they're willing to do whatever it takes.
No, and I think that in his case, though, Kawhi was going to get moved at some point. I think it's just going to happen. I don't know when. I can't really even tell you where. I mean, like I said, if I'm San Antonio, I send him out east. But if it comes down to sending him in the west, I mean, who's got enough, players and draft picks that will make it worth the Spurs' while? I mean, that's the question because they're a smart enough organization that they're going to say, okay, if you want our best player, what do you got? And they're definitely going to go as high as they can on the board.
Mm-hmm. And of course, then you had Paul George re-upping with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Well, that was interesting.
We're going to definitely talk about that on the next break, so stay tuned. You are listening to the ODPH.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back on this week's ODPH, talking NBA free agency, and like we said last segment, Paul George decided to re-up with Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I guess, what was it, Russell Westbrook had some sort of party in Oklahoma City over the weekend that, from something I read, that anyone who was there had to sign something that was equivalent to like an NDA that like you couldn't talk about it, or
Yes.
something. Which, if that's the case, the person whoever recorded that video, boy, are you in trouble.
Possibly, unless it was, of course, somebody that was representing Oklahoma City and
That's
they
true.
cleared it. Because I
That's
think
true.
for that to get leaked out, and especially I think it was the right decision for them to make the announcement, kind of non-formal, but they definitely want to let Paul
It was
George.
unique.
It was Paul George's way of saying, listen, we have unfinished business, and I don't need to go to L.A. and join up with LeBron.
I would say it's the most unique announcement done in the NBA since Tim Duncan announced he was retiring at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it was definitely unique, and it definitely represented that he is buying into Oklahoma City and what they're doing down there. That
Oh, yeah.
that he didn't need to go to a major market like L.A., and he believes that him and Westbrook and Melo and the rest of the players down there can win. And you know what? It's possible. They had a great regular season. It's just when you go into the playoffs and you go against the wrong team, stuff happens. But this is something to build off of. And I think I like it more so the fact that he's willing to go stay in a small market and try winning there.
Oh, yeah. It definitely says something that I think for all intents and purposes, what he said before he got to Oklahoma City when he was basically, I'm going to some team for a year and then I'm going to LA. That, I believe, was 100% the case, that this is just a stopgap for me to get to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. And I think he went into this past season with some hopes, all right, let's see what happens. Let's see where it goes. Let's try and win. I think over the season, he saw what Westbrook can do. He saw what the team can do. He got convinced by the coaching staff and management and his teammates around him that, hey, we got something special here.
Yeah.
You got to stick around. We got to add maybe 1 or 2 more role players, 1 or 2 more pieces, and we're really in this.
Absolutely, because they do have a somewhat big three. I mean, I know Melo is kind of on the back end of his career.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that. I mean, it hurts my heart as a Knicks fan to say that, but I think that he's, coming of that time where
The number of good days behind him are greater than the ones that are ahead of him.
right, but he's still a valuable asset to that
Yeah.
team. So going forward with that, I mean, I think I especially like that he's willing to stay there and they're willing to try winning. That we don't need to form a super team. We don't need to go Voltron and have everybody come together and be this unstoppable juggernaut.
No, I mean, they're not an unstoppable juggernaut, but man, when they're clicking, they're good.
Absolutely, and I think that they can just build off that because now it's not so much that we need to go to LA and we need to reform the Lakers and go from there. No, I think this is a nice message to other free agents that you don't need to form up super teams if you're happy where you are.
Right.
And I remember, like, for me in the 90s and early 2000s, before super teams became the thing, you had a superstar on every team, and every team could contend. Now, it's just a different game. It's a different era this time of year, and so I'm not saying one's better or not. But for me, I liked seeing that every team had a superstar on it, and every team they were so competitive that they didn't want to form up.
See, I think that's still the case that there are teams that still have superstars on their team. It's kind of like in the NFL where you have your quarterbacks like your Tom Brady's, your Aaron Rodgers, your Peyton Manning when he was playing, that they're the top of the class. They're the best of the best. They're the guys that like you trust in crunch time. But then you have the guys who are kind of like a step below, your Russell Wilsons, your Eli Mannings, your ones that they're dependable, but they're not the ones you trust the most. It's kind of like in that scenario where you look at the Knicks. Porzingis is a superstar. Now, is he on the superstar on the same level as a Russell Westbrook or a LeBron James? No, but he's still, I'd say, a superstar.
He is, but for what my point is trying to say is, I mean, every team was almost known to be a contender, no matter
Sure.
where they were ranked.
Sure.
And nowadays, it kind of get the sense that okay, out of the East, can you honestly name somebody other than Boston and Philly that's going to be a serious contender against Golden State next year?
Toronto, depending on who their next head coach is.
Okay, so that's one. But out of the whole other conference, the powers have now shifted to the West.
Say Indiana's got a good shot.
Well, they're a rising team.
So there's a lot of teams that in the East that were on the fringes, but the stop all was LeBron James that now have a legitimate shot because the stop all is not there.
But is their teams going to be on the same playing field, so to speak, as a Golden State, as a Houston?
No.
That's my argument.
I mean,
I'm trying to say.
The other thing I saw was that every active NBA MVP is in the Western Conference right now.
Right, and I think that just shows a shift in the league. That's what my point is trying to be, that not every team doesn't have a superstar, but when you start looking in comparisons and you start looking at the difference makers on each team, that you really see how there's a drastic difference between teams that have multiple superstars to one that has maybe a rising star and role players around it.
Well, it's like the MLB a couple of years ago, within the last 10 years or so, when you had a lot of the superstar pitching or a lot of good pitchers were in the NL. And you had a fair number of good pitchers in the American League, but the ratio was far greater in the National League's favor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very valid point. But like I said, my whole thing is just I know it's a different era, and it just kind of seems that maybe there is a little more parity than there is now in the NBA, which, I mean, is arguable.
Well, it's also, you have the era of the superstar teams where, your LeBron, Wade, and Bosh team up, what have you. But it's also the era where teams tank. And you know what? The season's a wash. We're not going to do anything, so let's just go for that number 1 draft pick.
I mean, it's just a different mindset. But it's not to say the one's better or worse. It just depends on what your preference is. And like I said, for me, I'm more of a fan of the early 90s or late 90s, early 2Ks, just before the super team era. But that's just me. But some people do like how it is now. But like I say, for Paul George's move, bringing it back full circle, I think it's a smart move, and it's kind of saying to the smaller market teams that, you know what, not everybody is in it to go get the big market, and if there's something good here, they can definitely build from it.
Paul George easily could have signed with some other team that was in a big market that he wanted for the money and gotten a stupidly high contract. But he chose to stay with Oklahoma City, and it's a small market, but they really got something good out there.
But definitely let us know what you think. Hashtag ODPH. What's your thoughts on Paul George's move? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Coming back on the ODPH for the local minute. Pad, what you got?
Well, got a little bit of interesting Rumble Ponies news, but of course it's not our telling you when they're playing or what standing they're in. It is All-Star news.
Okay.
Of course, the Eastern League All-Star game is coming up relatively soon, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players from the Binghamton Rumble Ponies have been named as All-Stars.
That's very impressive. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, you got Patrick Mazika, Levi Michael, Nabil Krismat, Daniel Zamora, apologies if I butchered any of those names, and 1 Timothy Richard Tebow.
Tebow has been on fire lately.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of carrying him because I know the national talk is kind of, is he worthy of it? Because I know his average has not been stellar, but I believe in June he was hitting somewhere around, he was over 300.
Yeah.
And he has shown some growth.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the sky is kind of a little more open to him as we're talking, that maybe he'll show that he's fully worthy, I guess, in some people's eyes of that all-star status. I think he is because he's definitely shown some growth since the season has began.
Well, and I definitely think the quote-unquote ring rust is starting to come off because, like has been said before, up until he played last year, he had not played competitive baseball since like his senior year of high school or something like that.
Right.
It's been a while. So when you don't do something for that amount of time and you try to pick it up, it's not, people say it's like riding a bike. It's really not, because you've got to get back into that mindset, into that kind of repertoire you're used to. And I think it's finally starting to click with him, and some of the stuff he used to do and was good at is finally coming back to him.
Yeah, and I think that he's definitely shown the commitment. I mean, if he really didn't think the baseball thing was not going to work out, he would have jumped ship a while ago.
Yeah,
so.
He wouldn't have continued on and wasted the Mets' time and money in a roster spot that somebody else with more potential or a higher ceiling than him could have deserved.
Yeah, he's definitely put the work in, and if you've been down to Nice Egg Stadium, you've definitely seen that. For more information on those Rumble Ponies, bingrp.com. So, Pad, why don't you start us off with those round bases?
Well, talk about a little Yankees news. Of course, they had a good weekend this past weekend. Had a 3-game series against the Boston Red Sox where they took the series 2-1. Great game on Friday night where they won 8-1. Got shellacked on Saturday night, 11-0. They lost, which if they're looking at those 3 games, Sonny Gray pitching, I knew we were going to lose that one. And of course, then you had the dominant win behind Luis Severino on Sunday night. Of course, now they go into a 3-game series against the Atlanta Braves, who have, and I didn't know this until I saw the Yankees post about this, the Braves had the best record in the National League. So that should be interesting. Of course, you've got Loaiza pitching for the Yankees tonight against Sanchez. Looking at the game on Tuesday, you've got Herman against Newcomb. And then looking at the closeout series, you've got Julio Teheran against C.C. Sabathia.
Should be fun times to watch. I mean, I know the All-Star game, speaking of that, is coming up. I believe voting ends this Thursday, July 5th.
Yep.
And the game is on the 17th, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So definitely, if you're a fan of Major League Baseball, you want to get your votes in and get your favorite players into the All-Star Game. The Midsummer Classic is always a fun time.
And the best part of that weekend is about a day or so before that, Home Run Derby, baby.
Absolutely.
Oh.
A lot of festivities going around for the midseason break, so definitely worth checking out if you're into Major League Baseball.
Pad digs the long ball.
Absolutely. He will be glued to his TV watching that this week.
No doubt.
Or when it happens, should I say. My round of the bases, NHL free agency has been happening too. Underneath the whole LeBron signing with LA, the NHL has been definitely making some moves. None bigger than John Tavares leaving the Islanders to go back to his hometown Toronto Maple Leafs. 7 years, I believe $77 million.
Something like that. This is big enough that it reached my radar, and you know how large my hockey radar is.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm the big hockey fan of the group here. So for this is huge, especially after they just had Barry Trotz come as their head coach. And they just got Oliver Wahlstrom in the draft. I thought he was going to stay because there was a lot of moves they could do. But for him to go is very interesting, but I could definitely see it too.
Oh, yeah, because I thought I saw something. Isn't he like 5th all-time in team points or something like that?
He's around there. I mean, he is definitely an all-star, and he can only help Toronto make the jump in the Stanley Cup.
So yeah, no, I do know a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, and when he sent me a message about this, and it was all caps.
Yeah, no pun intended because of Washington.
No, yeah, it was all capitals.
Yes,
all capital letters, I should say.
Yes, because Tavares going, I mean, that's a major shift in the East.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I personally, as a Rangers fan, I like to see him not in an Islanders uniform, but I'm okay with him going to Toronto. I can definitely take that. The Rangers didn't do any real crazy moves in free agency, so I was pretty happy so far, except I do hope they signed Duclair, who was put on waivers, I believe.
Well, and I did see, I believe, former Ranger Ryan McDonough signed like a 7-year deal?
Yep, in Tampa Bay. I mean, it's a lot, but he's definitely anchored that franchise since he's been there. And Tampa is one of those teams, like I said, they were only one game away from going to the Cup this year. So they have really not lost anybody drastic from that squad. So they're going to be a team on the rise to watch. And notable other free agents that have signed. Jamie Neal left the Vegas Knights to go to Calgary, which is kind of interesting, but I can definitely see that move happening too. Paul Stanzi is now signing with those Golden Knights, so that is a very, very big move to definitely pick him up for them. And Joe Thornton, the longtime San Jose Shark, is
the ageless wonder.
Yep, is signing one more year with them. And for San Jose, it's very weird because I know when you originally came from Boston to San Jose, it took a while, but he is now the face of the San Jose Sharks.
Mm-hmm.
That to see him in a different uniform right now, which I don't know if I could actually deal with that.
I don't think the NHL could deal with that.
No, definitely not, but it's very interesting to watch the free agency moves, and teams are definitely getting reset for the season, and I can't wait for hockey. I'm super excited. I know the schedule just released not too long ago. Rangers open at home against Nashville.
Ooh, there you go.
I'm definitely excited for that game. I'm hoping to get down there, so we'll see. And also, we have to give a correction to our one show that we did with the Crow's Nest MMA. As we were announcing the fight card, we did tape this in June, and there was a change to one of the preliminary bouts, which it makes me very sad but very happy, because Yancy Medeiros had to pull out of the fight against Mike Perry, which I am super bummed out because that one was going to just be absolutely fisticuffs. If you want to talk about just straight striking, that one was just going to be one man was going to drop and get knocked out.
Teeth are going to go flying.
Absolutely. I mean, we still have that with Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou in the main card because, trust me, that one is going to be arguably the most heavy-hitting MMA match of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably. But they got a suitable, and dare I say, I'm even more excited about this fight. Paul Felder is now stepping in to fight Mike Perry.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
On the prelim cards.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So not only do you have a stacked main card, but the prelim card did not lose any luster at all because Felder is definitely a worthy replacement to step in the shoes for Yancy Medeiros to fight Mike Perry. I'm super excited about the card. If you heard the show with Luke Vizengard and Vince Iotolian, you definitely know we're amped up for that card. And Pat, since you were not on that show, what is your thoughts on the main event, Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier?
Stipe. As good as Cormier is, he's been fighting in the one weight division for so long that while he can get to the heavyweight division, I think it's just the different class of fighters. You know, Stipe is the baddest man on the planet, and he will just cement that even further come Saturday.
See, this one is so widely contested, it's definitely going to be so fun to watch. Like, I cannot wait for Saturday. And we also have to give a shout-out to our sound guy galore, JR, who is becoming a dad on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So shout out to the sound guy. He's going to be taking a little bit of sabbatical from the show, but fear not, he will be back on the show sooner than later. So we want to give a shout out to him and his wife on their new child entering their family. That's always great news to hear. That's all we got for this week. So for Padawan Jay,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time.
Instead of making promises in the dark, why don't we just play our part? 'Cause I'm all alone and you're all alone tonight. Act like lovers, but we're not even friends. You can see the end, but it feels good to pretend. What does it matter?